This is the final slideshow of this course. So, if you're getting tired of my voice, you will not have to listen to it much longer. Next week, you will be able to enjoy Tanya's lovely voice. Anyhow, this learning outcome is be aware of current issues in child development related to ECE practice. And I'm sure there are many, many of these, but I have chosen 3. The 3 issues that I've chosen to have you explore a little bit more in depth are working in a pandemic society. Pretty timely that we're living through this, and so I have some documents for you to review, and you can think about that. The second is truth and reconciliation calls to action. This is not necessarily new, but something that we certainly do need to spend more time in considering and thinking about how we can truly respond in a responsible and meaningful way. And the final one that I have chosen is a global agenda, sustainable development goals. And for those of you who perhaps are considering continuing on your education further and perhaps um, doing research of your own as something that interests you, perhaps this would be something that you will find especially meaningful to you. For this part of the learning outcome, working in a pandemic society, I have chosen 3 documents presented by the Manitoba Child Care Association that speak to some of the things that you've been going through, living through. And so there's a link there to take you to the news and events page, and then you'll be able to find the releases from March 16th, March 20th, and April 8th. And I'd like to give them all a read. I am not really sure how familiar you might be with the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. And so I wanted to bring forward one specifically that highlights the role of early childhood education, and it states, we call upon the federal, provincial, territorial, and Aboriginal governments to develop culturally appropriate early childhood education programs for Aboriginal families. And we may think that, in our thoughts towards being aware of diversity and inclusion, that we are already responding in an appropriate way for Indigenous families. But I encourage you to continue to read this next document, the 2009 State of Aboriginal Learning in Canada, A Holistic Approach to Measuring Success. And it's, I think it's 77-page document. You don't need necessarily read the entire thing, but certainly the beginning portions kind of describe what is meant by a more holistic approach, and then the last 5 or 6 pages leading up to page 36 talk specifically about outcomes for preschool age children. And I just find that it's so meaningful. It spoke a lot to me because when you think about a holistic development, that's looking at really all the domains of development, including the spiritual domain. And I have to say that not necessarily including the spiritual domain, but certainly the idea of supporting the development of the whole child was why I went into early childhood education and did not continue on to become a teacher. So if that means anything to you, then read on. To support your understanding of what is meant by a global agenda and sustainable development goals, I have chosen for you to read and review the executive summary from this document, Nurturing Care for Early Childhood Development, a framework for helping children survive and thrive to transform health and human potential. And note specifically the information provided regarding the 5 strategic actions. Note also that this is only an executive summary, and that if this is something that truly inspires you or intrigues you, then you could find the entire document by Googling the name of the summary. Before I get to the key point of this slide, I do want to point out that the background photograph was taken by myself going back to 2009. And now that I think about it, I believe that this was during the H1N1 pandemic scare that we had, and we had finally chosen to go for a drive and check out what was going on with the ice on the river and saw this group of geese. Anyhow, here's this slide leading to your final discussion and responses number 3. For this one, I'm offering you a choice. You can choose to respond to the question provided for working in a pandemic. You can choose to respond to the question provided for truth and reconciliation calls to action, or you can choose to respond to the topic a global agenda. So your initial response would be an answer to the question that you will find on the discussion and responses number 3 Word document found in the assessment folder on Learn. Note that you will post your answer to the question in the appropriate discussion topic place on Learn, but that your responses do not necessarily need to stay within just that topic. So for example, if you respond to the question for working in a pandemic as your original post, you may respond to 3 classmates that have posted in the other 2 calls to action or a global agenda, and you don't just have to stay in your own topic area. I hope that makes sense. And if you have questions, you can reach out to me again on email, on the team chat, through WebEx, my personal room. Come on in, take a seat in the lobby. And other than that, I look forward to seeing you Friday morning for a final check-in and a few survey questions to give me some feedback. And that I really hope you've enjoyed the course. So I'll see you tomorrow morning, everybody, and have a wonderful day.